Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to detect bias in LLM's thinking using knowledge graphs and text network analysis. So that when you have a long conversation like I have here with ChatGPT, result of the deep research mode, I can quickly see that it's too focused on the topic of ecological marketing. Here it has 60% influence in this discourse, so too much. It's too focused on the concept of the market. I can also see that the diversity of this text is low. The narrative structure is too biased, so that means that this whole text and this whole research report could benefit from spreading ideas over the different other topics which are present within the text. And I'm going to show you how you can do that using the Nodus extension, where it identifies those peripheral topics that could benefit from more attention, and then generating research questions that bridge them together in interesting ways and help you see how you can develop this conversation further, so that in the end you arrive to something like this, which is a much more distributed structure with optimal topical diversity, where the most influential concepts are spread more evenly among the different topics present within the text, where there is more pluralism of thought. And that approach you can also use inside your favorite LLM, actually like I have here in Claude, using the Nodus MCP server. So you can also do that without using the actual graph like I'm doing here with the Nodus extension, but instead using the Nodus MCP server here, where it retrieves the statistics about a certain conversation you were having. So here I had a conversation with my Claude on the topic of Krebs cycle, and then I asked Nodus to tell me how is the diversity of this conversation, and then here it says you see that it's too biased, and then gives me a recommendation on how I could improve it by focusing on other ideas and topics. So I'm going to show you how you can do that both inside the AI chat or using the Nodus graph through the browser extension that we have in Nodus AI. So keep watching if you want to learn how it works. Also, please subscribe to this channel so that this content can get recommended to other people interested in similar content. So here I have a conversation that I had with ChatGPT, which was on the topic of ecological marketing. And I asked it to run deep research on the subject to see what's the state of the art currently in this field. And of course, as you know, ChatGPT deep research mode produces quite long reports and you can read them. But what I like to do before even reading them is to launch the Nodus extension, which you can install for any browser, including Safari. And then what it does is that it visualizes the content of that page as a graph. I can make it a bit bigger so you can see it better, where it shows me what are the main topics inside, how they relate to one another, what are the concepts, and also what are the gaps. And the way that it works is that basically it builds a text network from the text, which I have here, and then it represents this text network as a graph where the words are the nodes and the co-occurrences are the connections. And then based on this information and some graph metrics, it understands which words or concepts belong to the same clusters. And then these are the topics in the graph. So you have this topical view, which is like a simplified view of the text. And you can quickly see in a very nice visual way what this text is about. So for example, I can see here that it's about ecological marketing, brand transparency, consumer waste, electric and innovation, circular practices, carbon impact, and so on. So it gives me a really nice and clear idea of what the text is about, and also how the different topics are connected and what are the strong connections here. So for example, here you see there's somehow like a triangle between ecological marketing, brand transparency, and carbon impact. And these are the main topics, but this topic of ecological marketing is too big. So there is too much influence in that topic. So that also gives me an idea that perhaps this discourse could benefit from focusing more on the other topics that we have here, like carbon impact, brand transparency, consumer waste, and so on. And this is why the graph is so useful, because I can actually use it to generate some clarifying questions that I can send back to the AI in order to ask it to develop the topics that it mentioned, but that it didn't quite expand on. And as you can see here, once it's visualized, you also have this diversity measure bias. So there's already an advice that is provided by Nodus that says that you should develop this text further. And when you click on this button, it shows you some of the topics that you could focus on. And you can also identify the structural gaps inside the text and then use those gaps in order to generate some interesting ideas. For example, here you see we have two topics, consumer engagement and carbon innovation. And they're both mentioned in that report, but they're not too prominent. So Nodus identifies those two less represented topics, and then it says, okay, so how could you connect them? And then you can click on that button here, question, and then this will generate a research question where it says here, how can circular business models leverage eco-innovation to reduce carbon footprints and enhance consumer loyalty through sustainable marketing campaigns? And then you simply copy that message, like I did here. I'm going to show you where I copied it here. And then when you copy that, then ChatGPT is going to provide a response in the context of the conversation that you are having that will expand on the topics that you're interested in. So that when you visualize it again, you will see that the structure is much more dispersed, much less biased, and you can actually have also the measure here shown. Now diversity is optimal. So that means that now this text is quite diverse and that the influence is spread more evenly across different topics. So it's a very good tool to see if you're too focused on a certain idea and then expanding beyond the periphery and focusing on the less represented ideas, concepts, and topics. All you need to do is to go into the gaps field here and then regenerate some structural gaps here. And once you find something that you think is interesting, then you click AI advice question. It's going to generate the question, and then you simply copy that question and paste it back into your conversation. And so once you do that, then you can continue having an interaction in the context of this conversation with ChatGPT, but using this very nice way of finding the stuff that it's missing and developing the topics that are underrepresented in the whole discourse. So that's how it would work visually. Now, you can also do the same thing if you're using an AI like Claude or anything that can connect to external MCP servers. And here I have another conversation I was having with Claude on the Krebs cycle. That's from cellular biology. After I had this conversation, I decided to ask it, okay, can you analyze the diversity of this conversation? And what happens here is that because I have the Nodus MCP server connected to Claude, I have another video, I will link to it above and in the description to this video where I explain how to set up this server. It's basically just a few lines that you need to add into settings, but then your Claude will have access to all these different tools from Nodus, where it can generate knowledge graphs along with the graph statistics, where it can compare different texts, even run search engine optimization analysis and so on. And so once your Claude knows that it has access to those tools, what it can do now is to generate a knowledge graph and then receive the statistics like you see here. It received the response based on this conversation that the diversity score is biased, even though the modularity score is high. So it means that there are different topics, but the influence is too much focused in one topic. So here it actually provides you a really nice report also in text form that it says, okay, this conversation is too biased. It has high modularity, but it's too much focused on the idea of energy. So you see the concept of energy has too much influence here, and this is why actually it's too biased. So you could kind of shift the focus from energy to other ideas to make this text more balanced, to spread the influential ideas across the different topics, to develop the ideas that you have not been talking about so much. So as you can see, it's also a really interesting practice of ensuring that there is plurality of thought inside your conversations with AI. You can even use it for your own text as well, right? And then it recommends you what you could do, that you could focus on the different gaps that were identified, or you could focus on developing specific concepts and topics and focusing a little bit more on other ideas related to Krebs cycles. So here you see it gives you a full report, and then you can either follow the instructions yourself or ask Claude to follow those ideas that it provides for you. So these are the two different approaches. I hope you find them useful. Please let me know if you have any questions. Also, I encourage you to try it out. We also have a demo version, so you can even install the MCP server without signing up for an account. But if you want to use the graph, the extension, you actually can also use it for free now. So you can just run it on your conversations and see what information it provides. And the best thing about it is that if you don't want to send the response to the question back to your ChatGPT, you can actually use the built-in chat here and then talk to this content inside Nodus itself. So that can be interesting if you kind of want to check if the response is interesting to the question before copying it to your main conversation. And you also can, of course, choose different models here in settings. This is a new feature. We have Grok, we have Claude, and so on. I like to use GPT-4 mainly, but some people like other models as well. So it has all those different settings. You can try it out. Let me know what you think. Let me know what features you would like to have. I would be very curious to hear about your feedback. Thank you.